All right, everyone. It is Tuesday night, October 6th, I think, 5 o'clock. So I don't know what is going on with Zoom and why this didn't automatically schedule these for every Tuesday, but I will give everyone a few minutes to log in. My fault completely again. So if no one can join in, I guess I'll just go over some stuff and ask you guys if you have any questions. I have the exam done. I have 50 questions done, but what I really want to do is put in like 65 questions. So when you go to take the exam, I'm gonna have a random generator. It's gonna generate 50 questions per student. So no one's gonna have the exact same exam, but the questions will all be very, very similar in content. I went over a few of the things that in the recordings of what I expect from chapters 1, 2, and 3. We'll delve into 4. Oh, okay, somebody's coming in. That's great. Hello? Hello? All right. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Looks like they're on mute. Oh. All right. So where was I? Okay. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with Zoom. I'm gonna schedule this to auto-generate every Tuesday at 5. Doesn't work for anyone, we can always move it to 6th or whatever. I will be recording this. I will put it up on my YouTube channel, then I'll convert it and put it into Blackboard. Like I said, if you missed it, the exam is done, 50 questions of it. I'm going to add about 20 more so that there'll be 70 questions to randomly generate the exam for everyone. All right, so it'll be 50 questions, 2 points each. I am started grading some of the discussion, so I'm going to ask everyone to please reread the rubric, because a lot of you are just making your initial posts, all right, which is not going to get you full credit. So you should be doing your initial post and then having discussions with each other about something that we're posting. I also think that at some point I really want to start taking questions from the discussion, for test questions, to make sure everyone's in discussion. All right. So we'll start chapter 4 here. I'll give everyone a few more minutes to log in. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with Zoom, but I don't know what's going on. But I'll fix it somehow. All right. So right here. No idea why this is being so obstinate. All right, so because I have the test ready, I think what I'll do is I will post it on Thursday, and then I'll give you guys until Sunday to do it. If that works for everyone, that should give you Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Should give you 4 days to do it. You can do it at any point in time. Not a big deal. I'll give you about 65 minutes to do the 50 questions. They should be just basically information from the book and stuff I covered On the PowerPoint, remember, scientific method is going to be on there. Food label information, calories from either carbohydrates, fats, proteins, or alcohol are fair game. So if I give you a meal with a certain gram count of fats, proteins, carbohydrates, or whatever, you should be able to figure out roughly the caloric intake in that. And with the discussions, please try to involve the information from the chapters into the discussion. There's only, I think, 4 or 5 discussions, so I'm not asking you guys to do a tremendous amount of work. Just incorporate what you're reading in the book in your discussions, and then communicate with each other. You should be communicating with at least 3 or more of your students throughout the week, not just your initial post. A lot of you are doing your initial posts with no references, or you're basically giving me your opinion, which was fine, but I was hoping for a little more content. All right, somebody else is joined here. Hi, Jack. Oh, wait. Jack, can you hear me? All right, can anyone hear me? All right, somebody's talking. All right, so it's my fault. I don't know why it was in schedule, and you guys are supposed to get an announcement on this, so it's clearly my fault. But I will, like I said, I'm going to auto-generate these for Tuesday nights. If 5 doesn't work and 6 works better, it doesn't matter to me. I am pretty pliable. We can do it on Thursday. It really doesn't matter to me. So whatever you guys decide, there's only 2 of you in Zoom right now, and that's clearly my fault. So I apologize, but we will fix it. So I was going to kind of go through the chapter real quick, unless anyone has any specific questions they want to ask me. Nobody? Nothing? Okay. All right. So your book talks a little bit about organization of your body. So this is going to be, I said this is nutrition, not for nutrition majors or science majors, but this is pretty much general biology dogma, and it's pretty much in any biology course. This, I'm assuming that you're taking this as an elective, whether you're going to healthcare or this seemed better than a biology course or whatever, or maybe you had some interest in nutrition. I'm not sure of why you took the course, or obviously we had no choice with online this semester, and it looks like it's pretty much going to be online from what I'm hearing next semester too. So we'll make the best of this. If anyone wants to WebEx with me during the week, if you want to set up a 15-minute slot, just let me know. I can put that into WebEx. That'll be directly through Blackboard. We don't have to Zoom into this. All right. So just realize your body is made up of trillions of cells. And then if you guys are going to start looking into the microbiome, please realize for every cell in your body, there's trillions. For every cell in your body, there's 100 bacteria in your microbiome in your gut, supporting that digestive system, right? So basically, central dogma of biology or nutrition is basically, we're going to start with the cell, smallest living unit. Okay, they're going to tissues, and the tissues going to organs. All right, and we'll be discussing some of the organs of digestion and then the organ systems. We're talking a little bit about the respiratory system, but we're going to spend a little time on the digestive system. And then all of these organ systems together with homeostasis will create the organism, right, which is you or I or whomever. And whether you are, we're talking about humans, mammals, dogs, cats, mice, whatever we're talking about, they're all organisms. Right. So there's just basically a pictorial of your body, and up here we can see some cells and then tissues. These are actually, these are smooth muscle tissues, all right? So these are more or less involuntary, you don't have to think about it. And your smooth muscle tissue is going to run peristalsis for your digestive system, which is making sure that your food goes from your mouth to your esophagus, to your stomach, to your pylorus, duodenum, small intestines, and then hopefully to your large intestines, right, all the way through. Right. So we'll talk today a little bit about the organ systems and digestion, talk about some microvilli, and then I really would appreciate if you guys would start looking into the microbiome, all right, which is the bacteria that's in your digestive system, which is helping you digest all of the food you eat and a lot of the fiber. And please realize without your microbiome, a lot of the things you consume wouldn't be able to be broken down. You wouldn't be able to produce vitamin K for blood clotting and things essential for digestion. And your microbiome in your digestive tract in here also is directing your immune system. Most of your immune system is literally in your digestive tract, regardless of what you've been told before. And then please realize you have immune endocrine glands and you have immune lymph glands in your digestive tract, which will pick up any foreign substances and hopefully create antibodies to that. And they'll trigger your antibodies to produce memory cells, and your memory cells and your helper T cells will start generating your killer T cells and generate your entire immune system. Okay, so here's muscle cells are necessary for movement, and nerves send messages. So you could eat a meal and then somehow your autonomic nervous system is going to tell you that you're full. Stop eating. You also have nerve impulses to tell you when to swallow, when to drink, when to evacuate your bowels, right? And then these cells come together and they form tissues. So tissues are generally one or more different types of cells joined together, they become tissues. And then we'll find out in the next slide that tissues actually come together. Different tissues create organs, organs create organ systems, and then these organ systems should all work together for homeostasis and create the organism itself. There's an organ that's composed of various tissues that function in related fashion, right? So if your organ's functioning properly, it's going to know when to do certain things. Like this is your stomach, and it should know when to churn, and there's 3 layers of muscle in there, 3 different orientations to move the food around, and we'll learn a little about the acid content, hydrochloric acid in your stomach, which is going to help break down your proteins. And this is going to churn all your food. And then right here is your pylorus. All right, so this is a small sphincter. When it opens, it's going to allow about a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of food into your duodenum. We're going to find out that your duodenum here is your pancreas and your gallbladder are connected to this. And your pancreas is going to release a lot of digestive enzymes to digest your proteins. And then it's going to signal, if there's fat content, it's going to signal things to your pancreas to release lipase to digest fat. And it's going to release bicarbonate, which is very basic, which is going to maintain the proper pH for the digestion of all your nutrients. And here's your whole organ system. So hopefully that you guys are in discussing digestion and how all of these organ systems work together. So if I were to ask you guys the function of your gallbladder or your stomach or your pancreas, these organ systems, I would hope that you would be able to relay to me what each organ in the organ system does and how they work together. Right? So there's the organism. So everything all together working, cells, tissue, organs, organ systems, and then these organ systems should all work together to create the organism. We won't spend a lot of time on the nervous system or respiratory system. We'll spend most of our time here on the digestive system, considering we're talking about nutrition here. Right. So here's breakdown of the organ system of your body. So have a general idea of what all of these organ systems do. The digestive system, cardiovascular system, respiratory, lymphatic and immune system. All right. And like I mentioned before, your book may mention it. We can start a discussion on it, but please realize that a lot of your immune system is literally in your digestive tract. All right. And the other thing I want to point out to everyone right now is, whether you believe me or not, your digestive system is literally outside your body. All right. I know it's going to be hard for some of you to fathom, but if you think about it, if you were to swallow, let's say you swallowed a solid, God forbid, a penny or something, you swallow it in your mouth, at some point it's going to go through that entire tube, stomach, pylorus, duodenum, the small intestine, ileocecal valve, and then it's going to actually be excreted. So if I were to tie a rope to that penny, drill a hole in it, tie a rope to it, if you swallow that penny, I would be able, when you release that penny, I would be able to pull that string all the way through your digestive tract. So that is literally outside of your body. So when you're consuming all of these things, whether it's water, alcohol, food, whatever it is, your microvilli in your digestive system are absorbing that content through the outside of your body, bringing it inside your body, processing it in your intestines, and it's getting into your capillary glands, it's getting into your peptic portal system, it's going to your liver is going to reprocess that, break things down, and then rebuild them into whatever you need at that point in time, whether it's lipids, carbohydrates, proteins are going to be turned into amino acids, and amino acids, we bring those together in the ribosomes in the cell, and we can make certain proteins or enzymes through those. Urinary system, we'll talk a little bit about that. It's the elimination of salts, water, waste, maintaining fluid balance. Your kidneys really, your urinary system, your kidneys regulate water. They also regulate your blood pressure, and they help produce red blood cells and white blood cells through erythropoietin in the kidneys, and they can start generating your red blood cells and your plasma cells and white blood cells and so on. All right. And your muscular system is for movement. So whether that's the masseter or your muscles of mastication, your temporalis, your tongue, or whatever, those are voluntary muscles that you think about. And then you have to also think about all the muscles in your digestive system you do not have to think about. You don't have to worry about, you don't really have to worry about swallowing. It's pretty much automated. I mean, you have to learn a little bit as you're an infant how to control that so you don't choke and don't aspirate things into your lungs. You don't have to worry about churning your food. Your stomach takes care of that. And peristalsis in your digestive system, your body automatically knows that it wants to create peristalsis to move that food from your stomach to your rectum. All right. So if you had a blockage or something going on, you don't want retro paralysis or peristalsis, where the food would actually go back up through small intestines, the duodenum, stomach, and you'd be throwing it up. All right. We don't want that. All right, your nervous system, including your brain, spinal cord nerves, receptors, are there to help you with taste and other things in your body, and your sense of smell and things like that are all through your nervous system. All right, your endocrine system is going to regulate your body activities, including growth, nutritional balance, and reproduction. All right, so please realize your endocrine system works along with your nervous system, and it gives out chemical signals. Your nervous system is there to have an immediate response. Your endocrine system really is there for a longer lasting response to some of the same stimuli. Right. There's your integumentary system. Your skin, hair, and nails really are protection and immunity, regulate body temperature, and vitamin D synthesis. All right. So please realize, we all can, or probably been told that you need sunshine to produce vitamin D, and that's true. That's to produce vitamin D1, and there's calcidiol, vitamin D2, which is processed in the liver, and then it goes to your kidneys and produces calcitriol, vitamin D3, which helps regulate calcium uptake, and we need calcium to harden the bones, and we need calcium to regulate blood clotting and to regulate pH in the kidneys. All right, probably out of the scope of the course, but you've heard it. And then reproductive system for procreation, creating children for survival of the species. As a side note here, you guys realize that it wouldn't be as much, it wouldn't be as much fun, but you all could live theoretically without your reproductive system. It's one system that you don't need for survival of the organism. You need it for survival of the species per se. All right, so the digestive system we'll go over that. So digestion, humans are omnivores. All right. So kind of know what that word is. So it's a carnivore, is herbivore, or omnivores. All right. So what does that mean? All right. Does that mean they're going to eat strictly grasses or bark, or they're going to eat strictly dairy, or they're going to eat strictly vegan diet? So kind of know what that word means. All right. And digestion, please know the difference between mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical would be anything grinding like your teeth, chewing, swallowing. There's some mechanical digestion in the stomach as those 3 different layers of your stomach start churning in different orientations to really pulverize and mix the food up. All right, and please realize it's moving that around, like, sort of like your laundry in a washing machine, moving it around, getting all that food continuously exposed to hydrochloric acid. And hydrochloric acid is going to kill a lot of the microbial things that you're consuming. It's also going to start breaking down proteins, right? And then your chemical digestion is really more like digestion of food through your microvilli and your small intestine. And chemical digestion can also mean breaking it down with all the hormones and chemicals and enzymes that are coming from your pancreas to break down your proteins, your lipids, some of your carbohydrates, and even bile, which emulsifies the fat and has some microbial properties too. And then absorption, all right, so please realize your food is actually absorbed in your small intestine, all right? Your large intestine is pretty much there to reabsorb any excess fluid. It is home of some microbacteria that does produce vitamin K, like I said, for your blood clotting, right? So major organs. So on the left, we have major organs. These are the ones that you would think about. Accessory organs don't literally actually take place with digestion, but they help break things down, or they aid in digestion. So major organs would be your mouth, esophagus. All right, so your esophagus is going to be a conduit for air, water, food, or whatever. All right, it's going to go through your diaphragm and then your stomach, and then your stomach is there for emulsifying the chyme. All right, your small intestine is there for pretty much for absorption. Right? And it's relatively long, and it's got a lot of microvilli for surface area. And then your large intestine, we'll get to that here towards the end. Your teeth are there really for grinding. Your book probably is going to be talking a little bit about the incisors and the different teeth and what they do. Like some of them are for grinding, some of those are for tearing your bicuspids and things like that. Now your tongue is there to move food around to help you swallow. But please realize too, your tongue is there for taste. It has, certain tastes, whether it's salty, sweet, umami, which is more of like a meat taste for meat, or specifically beef. And that was recently discovered in the last couple of decades. It's not really been that well known, right? And then you realize that bitters more towards the front. So if you were to eat something bitter, you would automatically, hopefully, spit it out before you swallowed it. Your gallbladder is literally storage for bile, which is produced in your liver. Gallbladder is strictly a storage vesicle, and that is triggered for contraction once you consume a meal that's heavy in lipids or fats. In the gallbladder, the bile will actually emulsify fat. All right, so that's going to break it into smaller particles. So if you're not sure what that is, think about if there was oil in your dishwater and you put some dish soap on, it's going to start breaking that oil up into smaller and smaller beads. That's literally what bile does to any kind of lipids or fat in your duodenum, and helps break it down. And there's more surface area, so it can be absorbed. And please realize too that fat and water don't mix. So we have to get a lot of these lipids into your bloodstream, which is primarily plasma, all right? So that is going to be a liquid component. So we're going to find out about HDL, high density lipoproteins, and microchylons, which we can actually absorb. We can actually surround these lipids with a little protein shell, like an M&M. We can then float them into the capillary fed, and we send them to your liver, and your liver can send them out to help make the biphospholipid layer of your cell walls and things like that. And your pancreas is there for digestive enzymes. And also we're going to talk about insulin and things like that with regulating blood sugar. Talk about that coming up too. Right. So there's your digestive tract. And I really, like I said before, your digestive tract is outside your body. So just kind of imagine this is a hollow tube. Your esophagus, going to your stomach, there's your liver. And, it's going to go around, all around the intestines here. And then it goes up your ascending, transverse, descending colon. And there is your rectum. So this is going to be basically, not to be gross, but it's going to be a storage area for feces or undigested food, so you can release it when it is socially acceptable to do so, right? So beginning of digestion is using your teeth and chewing. So you're going to break these things down. You're going to be doing taste. It's there for taste and chewing to help the flavor around your mouth. And we'll realize that taste and smell are related to each other. What we really want to, teeth and chewing, is to really break that down into smaller pieces for more surface area. So it's much easier for you to digest it. So some of older people are people with a lot of bad dentition or a lot of bad teeth or things going on in their mouth, they're not able to chew, they end up having a lot of digestive problems because they're literally swallowing food in great big pieces, and it doesn't really get digested well, causes a lot of digestive issues for people. All right, your salivary glands release saliva. Right? There's many saliva glands in your mouth. They're releasing saliva to liquefy the food, help you swallow it. And there are lipase and other amylase in your saliva, which is going to start actually breaking down starches into smaller components of carbohydrates or sugars. So if you have never done in elementary school, or you want to do it now or whatever, take a saltine cracker or a rich cracker and chew it for a long time, 3 or 4 minutes, and you realize that that starchy taste will start turning sweet as that amylase starts breaking that starch down and turning it into less complex sugars, right? And your tongue has taste buds, and I mentioned these before. You have sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, all right? So some people like things that are bitter, other people don't like things that are bitter. Umami, not a lot of people, not everyone can taste beef. They don't have this as specialized as some people, and people have a very, very strong craving for beef. Generally, they're stimulating these taste buds, right? And sweet and sour, depending on where they're on the mouth. Some people really like things that are very, very salty. So that can be a preference. Food does generally taste better if it's salty. Or some people just generally consume a lot of salt. It helps regulate blood volume. And some people have a problem with salt. If they consume too much salt, water always follows salt. They have a much, much higher blood volume, and that can cause a lot of high blood pressure. So some people have that problem because if your kidneys cannot release all the salt, you can theoretically consume, I'm not saying as much salt as you want, but you can consume large quantities of salt, and if you drink enough fluid and your kidneys are functioning, it will flush that out. But some of the population, kidneys don't function that well for excretion of sodium, so they are more sensitive to that. And then once again, your sense of smell and taste are intertwined. And if you can't fathom that, just realize how food tastes if you're congested, or if you were a kid and you didn't want to eat something, if you plugged your nose, it didn't taste as bad, right? Okay. And there's the esophagus, which is a very, very coordinated muscle, which brings the food to the back of the mouth. And the esophagus closes over the trachea, so you don't inhale food or fluid, you don't aspirate it into your lungs. All right, that can cause major irritation, it can cause pneumonia, it can cause lung infections and things. So we really don't want to do that on purpose. Sometimes you're not paying attention, or you laugh or you sneeze or whatever, the esophagus doesn't close all the way, and sometimes you can aspirate things into your lungs. Right. So there's basically how it works. This is a food mass. We're going to learn that to be a bolus. It's called BOLUS, is a bolus. All right. And there's your tongue. It's going to bring, as the food travels down here, it's going to trigger this to close the esophagus, is going to close so that food doesn't go down your trachea. Right. There's your epiglottis. All right. Okay. So we get esophagus when swallowing, all right, causes contraction or paralysis. So it's going to bring the food in a one-way direction, then a sphincter closes so it can't go back up. Then those long muscles there contract again. We have a sphincter so it can't go back up. We want to make sure the food's going in a one-way direction. So we're not, we're swallowing it in one direction. And if you don't believe me, or you want to experiment with this, you can literally drink a glass of water standing on your head. It won't be that easy to do, but it can be done. All right. And choking, signs of choking, and the Heimlich Maneuver, your book will cover that. And then if you notice here, we have the a sphincter here. All right, as we go from the esophagus, it's going to be, the diaphragm is here. But sometimes people have a hiatal hernia, or you may have heard of Barrett's esophagus or things like that, where sometimes the sphincter doesn't close, and some of the food as it's churning gets regurgitated up into the esophagus. And remember, the stomach is very, very high in acid, so it has a very, very low pH. And this area of the esophagus really wasn't designed to handle that kind of acidity. So it can start causing tissue change or metaplasia in that area. Right. So there's the Heimlich Maneuver. I don't know if legally we can call it the Heimlich Maneuver anymore, but you're going to basically, I said back here that the diaphragm is here, right? So if you get something stuck in here, if you actually forcefully squeeze under the rib cage and move your fist up, it'll actually force the air up, all right, and then it'll expel the food. So the lower gastroesophageal sphincter is down here. There's a pyloric sphincter. There's a gastroesophageal, gastrostomach, esophageal sphincter. This is where people have a problem. If it doesn't close all the way, food can actually come up here, or sometimes it tears and food will get caught up in there, all right? And it starts, well, not to be gross, it starts rotting in there. So these people have this really, really bad breath or odor, all right, as food is literally rotting in the bottom of their esophagus. Not to get gross, but it happens. So gastric juice, all right, or the gastric contents, all right, hydrochloric acid and enzymes. There's mucus, all right, that's coating the rugae of the stomach so that the acid doesn't start digesting the stomach muscle there. All right, so it's there as a protective layer, a little bit slimy. Chyme is what we're going to start calling the food as it leaves here as its chyme. All right, and the muscular movement. And I said the stomach has several layers. So this is the orientation here. There's a longitudinal layer and there's an oblique layer. So these are all contracting, really emulsifying that food, kind of like kneading dough. It's really, really pulverizing it. All right, and here's the pyloric sphincter. And this opens and closes to let food out in very, very small quantities. So a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons, all right? Because right here is your duodenum, and this is connected, or the pancreas is connected here, and the gallbladder is connected here. So we're going to start sending these enzymes from the pancreas down here in small intervals. So we're going to have contact with the food. So if it's lipase or amylase, or some of these other enzymes, or bicarbonate, It's going to start mixing with the food in very, very small quantities, getting it ready to go into the small intestines for digestion and eventually absorption. Right? So here's your small intestine. Consists of the duodenum or duodenum, depending on how you spell that. And this is the first section. Really not a lot of digestion goes in here. This is really preparation for the small intestine. And duodenum literally means 12 fingers. All right, so you have 10. So it's literally about the length of your two hands. All right. So this is where all the digestive enzymes culminate in there, and they start breaking down the food. And then we go into the jejunum. All right. And then the ileum is the last section. There's an ileocecal valve. All right. If you guys know, have you heard of your appendix? Your appendix is right at the ileocecal valve, and then it goes into the large intestine. It goes up, over, and then back down to the rectum. All right. So absorption, we use villi, or they're really called microvilli. These are going to increase the surface area of the small intestines a tremendous amount. And there's a capillary network in lacteals for absorption. Right? Please realize with the microvilli, if you have an irritable bowel syndrome, or you have an antigen antibody reaction, or you're gluten intolerant, even that's going to cause a reaction in the small intestine continuously, you start really destroying the villi, and you don't have a whole lot of surface area for absorption of food. So that's why people have a lot of digestive or, yeah, they have a lot of digestive issues, because you're actually ruining or destroying the interior layer of the intestine, which is literally, like I said, outside your body. And that's where the interface between the food and the absorption takes place. So if that's destroyed, you're reducing the surface area quite a bit, and you're really setting yourself up for some either malnutrition or some major digestive issues. All right, and we have absorptive cells that literally absorb these nutrients. They go into these capillary networks, and I said, as they go through here, they're going to actually head to the liver through the hepatic portal valve, and it sends all that nutrient-rich food to your liver for processing. Right. Here's your small intestine, and here's those microvilli I was talking about. So these are really increasing the surface area of your intestines 1,000-fold. And then, as we do this, it's going to start going into these absorptive cells, and it goes into your lacteal lymph system. So your lymph system is there for the immune function. It also can absorb, or it can take on some very, very small fat globules and return that to circulation through the thoracic duct or the right subclavian, and bring it back to the heart so we can recirculate around through the body. All right. But here's your microvilli. This is, we take this on its side. Here's all your surface area. Nutrients enter the cell, and then they go through the cell. These are columnar cells, so they're really there for storage. They're going to go to the lacteal or capillary. Lacteal for generally some lipids or fats, and the capillary bed to go into that hepatic portal valve vein to go to the liver. All right. It's just kind of a rundown, like I said, of where things are going. Right. So nutrients dissolve in water, such as amino acids, glucose, and minerals, enter the capillary network of the villi through there, and they're going to go right to the capillary bed. All right. Anything that's lipid or fat is really going to enter those lacteals. Right. Eventually, these water-soluble nutrients are transported to the GI tract, liver by the portal hepatic, is really called the hepatic portal vein. All right. The liver has many functions, and there's literally 500 of them that we know of, right, including monitoring the blood's nutrient contents, detoxifying many harmful substances. So whether that is alcohol, Tylenol is huge, ibuprofen is huge, any recreational pharmaceuticals, or any kind of pharmaceuticals that aren't part of your body, normal part of your body, your liver has to detoxify these. And this is why you have to dose drugs out every 4 hours, every 8 hours, every 2 hours, or whatever, because your liver is getting rid of them. You have to replenish them, right? And we want the liver to get rid of them. We don't want these medications or whatever staying in your body forever. We never get rid of them. So that's why we have to dose these things out depending on your height and your weight. And if you have diminished liver function, we would either cut back your medications or we dose it out in a longer period of time because we have to give your liver time to process these. All right. Making glucose from glycogen and storing various nutrients. So as your liver can store glycogen, it can store some fat-soluble vitamins. It can store a lot of things for relatively long period of time. So if they're during a time of starvation or whatever, you would be able to live. All right. Okay. So water-soluble nutrients and water-insoluble nutrients go in the water-soluble go into your capillary bed, your liver. All right. Remember I said that fats and water don't really mix. So water-insoluble nutrients, we use those chylomicrons, and we can, like I said, we wrap them in a little bit of protein, right? Then we can ship them off. All right. So just think of it as like maybe a very, very tiny M&M. So the lipid would be the chocolate in the M&M, and the chylomicron protein portion would be like the candy-coated shell. So this will dissolve in water, and we can float it through the lymphatic system to the right subclavian or left, no, the left thoracic duct or the right subclavian, and then recirculate it into your heart. And this is pretty much what your lymphatic system does with all the extra fluid in your body. It's going to pick up a lot of microbes and other things that are in your interstitial fluid, the fluid around your cells, and we can get it into the lymphatic system. We can just flush all these things through, and then you have lymph nodes, which can, at least have to pass through, and they can trap them. And if there's anything that's foreign or pathogenic or whatever, we can start waging a B cell antibody reaction to them. Right? And here we'll talk about a little bit about the accessory organs. So remember, these aren't directly involved in digestion per se, but they're important for processing anything we're digesting. All right. So your liver, it's going to tell you all the functions it has there. We can't really blow this up. I don't really know how to magnify because I don't have a touch screen here. All right. There's your pancreas. Pancreas produces and secretes most of the enzymes to break down carbohydrates, protein, and fat into the small intestine. Gallbladder, as I said, the gallbladder contracts when fat in the small, there's fat in the small intestine, releases bile into the duodenum. All right. So it actually, your book says is in the small intestine, but once fats leave your stomach and they're in the duodenum, there's sensors in there, nerve sensors that will signal the gallbladder, say, listen, I just ate a number 5 from Wendy's, all right? I don't know what the number 5 is, but so it's a great big cheeseburger and milkshake, and it was full of all kinds of fats, all right? It's going to trigger your gallbladder to contract. And remember, I said the gallbladder has bile in it, which is produced in the liver because they're literally attached. It's just kind of a storage tank. It's going to emulsify the fats or break them down into smaller and smaller particles to help them get digested. And once again, we're going to put those in the lacteals, into the lymphatic system, and recirculate them in the body for use. So liver processes and stores many nutrients. The liver releases nutrients from storage when they are needed for various functions, including the production of new cells and repairing damaged cells. So it's going to take all the proteins we eat and we break down and absorb. It's going to break them down into amino acids, which are very, very small pieces of protein, and then it's going to go to your ribosomes and parts of your ribosomes of liver or ribosomes of other cells, and we can reassemble them. So think of it as little tiny, like little Legos. We can take these little Legos and we can assemble them in a certain structure, in a certain order to produce whatever protein or enzyme we need, right? Whether that's for building cells or repairing cells or growing your hair or whatever, or producing digestive enzymes or proteins. The organ makes cholesterol and uses the lipids to make bile, a substance that aids fat digestion and prepares fat and fat-soluble vitamins for absorption. Right? So your liver does make cholesterol. So even if you've heard of some of these statin drugs or drugs that they tell you don't eat any cholesterol. Your liver's gonna produce it anyway. It has to, because cholesterol is part of your biphospholipid layer of your cells, and so there is a structural component to hold that biphospholipid layer, your cell wall, together and giving it some structure and a little bit of flexibility. All right, bile flows from the liver into the gallbladder, where it's stored until needed. All right. Once here again says the gallbladder contracts when fat in the small intestine release bile into the duodenum. Right, and your pancreas is going to produce a lot of those enzymes. Like I said, amylase, lipase, and a bunch of other things. And I'm not sure if your book mentions it, but please realize your pancreas also releases bicarbonate. You're not sure what that is. It's literally more or less baking soda. All right, so it's very, very basic. So it's going to alter the pH in your duodenum. The pH in your stomach is around a 2 or 3, which is very, very acidic. Bicarbonate is like 8 or 9. So when you release it into the duodenum, it's going to bring that pH to right around between 7 and 8, and that's what we want for digestion and anything all off of that, like below 7 or above 8. Some of these things can be very dangerous, and they can start breaking down proteins, denaturing them, altering their shape. And once you alter the shape of protein, a structural protein in your body, it doesn't function adequately. If you catch it in time, sometimes they can restore the sulfur and hydrogen bonds, but sometimes it's too late. In your large intestine here, you have your colon, all right? Colon, this is your small intestine is here, all right? There's your appendix. There's an ileocecal valve here, ileocecum valve, all right? So once food leaves here, it's pretty much, we've absorbed pretty much everything we can get out of it. Some fiber and some things can get broken down more in here, but really what's going to happen is this is the ascending limb, transverse, and descending limb. So this is orientated this way on purpose. So it has to literally go up against gravity, go all the way across, and then back down. And its job right here is to reabsorb any extra fluid. All right, because back in the day, way back, water wasn't probably as readily available. So you want to conserve whatever you can. You want to reabsorb that whenever possible, so you don't dehydrate it. Right. So absorption pretty much of water. There's a few things, possibly vitamin K, but for the scope of this course, it's not important. And then fecal matter is anything that you don't need or don't absorb, or superfluous foodstuffs or whatever. So we're gonna bring it down here, and then it goes to the rectum, all right, just to store it. All right, and then your body will generally give you 3 or 4 signals to let you know you need to evacuate your bowels when it's socially acceptable. All right. So intestinal bacteria. All right, so we really talk about the microbiome here. All right, bacteria in the large intestine helps with fermentation, nutrient production, and it does produce a lot of those gas, CO2 gas, which causes flatulence. And you might know some people that are more flatulent than others, and it can pretty much be their diet. If whatever they're eating is fermenting a lot or producing a lot of gases from fermentation, they're going to have a lot more gas or bloating in their intestine. All right, and not to be totally disgusting, but we literally have things in here. There are actually things called anal flaps that allow you to release gas, and they flip back up so that nothing comes out, unless you have a small accident there. All right, all right. Antibiotics. So a lot of us are taking antibiotics, or maybe you've heard about C. diff or Clostridium difficile. So the problem is, if you take a lot of antibiotics, if you wipe out all of this bacteria, this microbiome, microbacteria, that you need to help digest things, if you kill them with antibiotics, no one that really can live through that are not as important for this course, but they're things called spore formers. So they will actually make dormant spores, and then when the antibiotics are gone or everything is gone, these will regenerate. All right, so you've killed off all of their competition. Now you have nothing but Clostridium difficile growing in the intestines, and that's why people have these major, major problems with C. diff. Specifically nursing homes or anyone who's gone on any kind of long-term multi-spectrum antibiotics can be very, very detrimental to the digestive system. So you can repopulate some of these with yogurt and some of these probiotics. There's also something, if anyone wants to research, a fecal transplant. So literally you actually go in and take microbiome, microbacteria, and there should be 7 or 8, E. coli and sometimes Klebsiella, hopefully not Proteus, but there are some of these organisms that we want living in our digestive system to help ferment and break down all these foodstuffs, right? And once again, I said these microbiome actually helps regulate your thought patterns and a lot of different things that they're learning. All right, so intestinal infections, right, can really wipe these things out or really alter your microbiome, and it can cause major, major digestive issues. So starvation can do it. There's really no food and we can starve it all off. That's possible. Antibiotics are huge, and whether they're overused or you're literally consuming them in the food you're consuming. All right, so if we're talking about beef cattle or chickens or any kind of lot-fed food, they're giving these animals antibiotics, either because they have infections or they're living in these conditions where they would be getting a lot of infections. So we can give them antibiotics, and there's growth hormones and all kinds of things we can get into at the end of the chapter or end of the course here. And emotional stress. All right, so emotional stress, some people during emotional stress, they're very, very sick, or they literally can have major bouts of diarrhea and literally flush a lot of this stuff out. And we have to repopulate that. Right? Sorry, let me get this out of the way here. Sorry, guys, give me a minute here. So there's just a summary of your digestive system. So they're all numbered. So basically know what each component does. All right, that's a pretty fair question for a test question. All right, so we're going to some common digestive system disorders. Right? So constipation and frequency. So whether you're constipated, all right, or you're going to the bathroom too much. All right, so there's a lot of definitions for constipation. Some people or some of my patients will tell me, oh, well, I went to the bathroom, twice this week. Okay, well, that might be their normal, but we would hope for elimination of the fecal matter more often than that. All right, and think about that for just a minute. If you had stuff that you consumed, and let's say your body temperature is whatever it is, 96.9 degrees or 97 or whatever, and you've got food in there, all right? Now I know it's got enzymes and there's hydrochloric acid and things, but these things are more or less festering in your intestines. So if you put food in your garbage can in July and you left it outside for 4 or 5 days, you're going to realize it's going to start really causing some major issues. And then as you do that, hopefully, if you have these things going on, your body is going to flush it out. So has a little abort mission, or frequency, all right? So please realize if you eat something and you get sick, or let's say you have diarrhea an hour after you eat, all right? Are you really sick, or are you actually really healthy? Your body says, wait a minute, this is not right. I want to flush it out. You have like an abort mission. It's actually probably healthy, right? So if your body is performing or has a lot of diarrhea, you're probably flushing out something that's irritating, or you could be allergic to, or there's something going on. All right, so your body's literally flushing it out. It could be salmonella, could be Shigella. Hopefully it's not cholera or giardia or something like that, but you're just flushing out these things, right? So dietary fiber is actually good, all right? It gives you some bulk in your feces and your digestive content. And remember that peristaltic action where these muscles contract and then we had a sphincter. If you have more fiber, the peristalsis is something to actually move, all right? So if you're not eating a lot of fiber, you're eating a lot of refined food or, I'm not going to say garbage, but things that would not be the most optimal thing to eat. If these muscles are contracting, they have nothing to push against. They have nothing to help move it, right? So it's a very, very hard on your digestive system, right? Water intake is important too. So if you're dehydrated, don't have a lot of water, that can cause constipation, right? You can drink a whole lot of water. Your digestive system should be able to reabsorb that into your blood plasma, and then your kidneys, as they filter all your blood continuously, they should be getting rid of any excess water. All right, exercise can help with constipation, getting your muscles moving around or action. Some people tell me, I had 2 cups of coffee and then I'm in 20 minutes later, I have to go to the bathroom. So that can be something that can cause excretion of the fecal content. All right, changes in routine can change that, and psychological disturbances. Or some people, if they're depressed, they become constipated, or if they're really stressed or angry or something, it can really cause the entire digestive system to slow down and they can get constipated. Or if you're under a lot of stress, you have constant fight or flight. You don't have the parasympathetic rest or digest going on. Right? Chronic constipation, all right, can cause some major things here. All right. So hemorrhoids, so those are basically dilated veins, all right, around, usually around the anal sphincter. Right? And they can be internal or external. So sometimes you could have a, painful excretion and, you look down, there's a little bit of blood on it. So it could be just you tore something or a hemorrhoid. That generally will repair. Sometimes if they're external, they can be very, very painful. They can be very, very itchy. So there's internal hemorrhoids and external hemorrhoids. So I'm not going to say these are normal, but if there's a lot of pressure, a lot of constipation, or sometimes pregnant women get it, people that sit all day, or people that don't really defecate as often as they should. Such a great conversation we're having. But if you think about it, if anyone has a dog or a cat, like your dog, when it wakes up, usually runs out, goes to the bathroom, comes in, drinks some water, eats, and then, you can time it 20, 22 minutes later, 15 minutes later, they're outside, they're going to the bathroom. So they're literally getting rid of everything in their digestive system because they know there's incoming coming in. They also have a smaller digestive tract per se than we do, most breeds, right? One that's more concerning is diverticuli. All right, so these are your small intestines here, but if you can have an outpocketing, we have pressure where it actually finds the weakest point of that muscle and it blows it out. It's kind of like if you've ever had a tire that had a blab or the sidewall kind of had a bubble in it. Very similar to that. This is not a good situation because what can happen is if that ever tears, all right, now you have fecal contents going into your intestines. That's a septic infection waiting to happen. Or you can have something where food will get in there and it won't really pass. It'll start rotting or rotting in there. It can start bleeding. Or you can have something called a fistula. Fistula is when you have a tear, or a tear could be out here and it literally will tear to the outside of the body. Now, that's not a good situation. You guys can look that up if you want, and we'll get into the graphics of that. Where you get a fistula where these two segments, if they ever tore, you would have a hole here. And when you have peristalsis going, it's going to go through here. This is all going to be left there. It's not going to move very often. So you can have strangulation, you're going to have systemic infection in there, major, major problems if this doesn't follow a very specific path. All right, diarrhea. We have symptoms of diarrhea. I'm sure we've all experienced. So it's usually just watery stool, and it's usually for a purpose. You're usually flushing something out. So, causes can be, like I said, you might get nervous, and you can have diarrhea. You might be stressed out. Some people get constipation. Some people get diarrhea. You could have eaten something you didn't like, something you had a food allergy to, or a food intolerance to is probably more like it. But severe cases, if you are having many, many bouts of diarrhea, you can become seriously dehydrated. All right, so dehydration, if you lose 2% of your body, 2% of your fluid in your body's 70% fluid. If you lose 2% of it, that's mild dehydration. 4% is moderate. 6 or 7 is severe, and anything over 9 or 10 can cause serious death. All right, because what will happen is the fluid will leave your cells and your neural cells, and they won't function real well, and you can have major, major neurological problems, and that can cause death. All right, nutrient loss. You have diarrhea, you're losing all of those nutrients, just flushing it out of your body. It doesn't have time to go through those microvilli, don't have time to absorb all those nutrients. So treatment can be Imodium, AD, what is it, Imodium something, I can't think of it right now. Treatment, you really want to rehydrate with water, or if you're losing a lot of electrolytes, Pedialyte, Gatorade, or just plain water generally is enough, unless you really have severe diarrhea with some electrolytes. All right, vomiting. All right, so causes of vomiting can be you ate something you didn't like, or something didn't agree with you, or maybe it was sour or rotten, or vomiting. Yeah, can be an emotional response to something. You really get sick or upset, or you vomit, or you see something that's disgusting and you vomit. So treatment can be, simple as Pepto-Bismol, just rehydrating with fluid, maybe not eating for a while. All right. In severe cases, repeated vomiting. I said before that the stomach contents very, very acidic. Hydrochloric acid is a pH of 2 or 3. And as you vomit that up, like I said with the Barrett's esophagus or whatever, the esophagus is not designed to deal with that acid. So people that constantly, if they're bulimic, all right, or they're constantly vomiting from, maybe they have a gastrointestinal blockage, they have retroperistalsis. So every single time they eat, they're throwing up. That's a sign that you probably have a blockage, something's going on. That can start destroying that tissue, all right. It can lead to ulceration of the esophagus, or possibly metaplegia, where we'll start changing tissue type for protection. Or if you're vomiting and you have diarrhea, that's not good, because if you're vomiting, you're really throwing up hydrochloric acid. You're going to really throw off your pH, right? You're really throwing off your body pH, because your body is going to want to replenish that hydrochloric acid, which is very, very acidic. So you're going to start taking hydrogen ions and chloride ions from cells and interstitial fluid, and it can cause major, major imbalances with your pH and a lot of things in your body. Right. And then additional symptoms. You could have vomiting, diarrhea, rash, inflammation. Can be major, major things going on, especially if you eat something that you're intolerant to, or you consume too much of something, or consume something that, we won't even get into genetically modified food, or something that's causing a major reaction in your body. Right. So acid reflux, I mentioned that before, is when that lower gastroesophageal sphincter doesn't close all the way, and their stomach contents going up into your esophagus. Right. So some people have Barrett's esophagus or lower esophageal sphincter. Could be because you're overweight, or some people that drink after dinner, or they overeat, or they kind of recline after they eat, and all that pressure pushes up on their diaphragm and into their stomach and cause that sphincter to not close all the way. The greasy foods. All right, heartburn can be caused from pregnancy, excess body fat, and smoking. All right, so heartburn really is, it's really not your heart burning. It's really more of a sphincter problem or something going on with your stomach. So certain foods and alcohol, fatty, greasy foods, ketchup, mustard, or vinegar, or tomato-based sauces are very, very acidic. Citrus fruits are acidic. Some juices are acidic. So generally, these are basically, if you look at all these, they're very, very acidic, or more acidic than the pH is lower than 7. Let's just say on the scale, the pH scale, they would be considered more acidic. All right, carbonated beverages, all that gas and stuff, as it disassociates, expands the stomach, and that can, the stomach, if the pyloric sphincter is closed, it has to go out the esophageal sphincter. There's no other way around it. All right, peppermint, sometimes spearmint. Coffee is a big trigger for some people, and sometimes chocolate can cause this too. And everyone's different. Some of these things don't bother anyone. Sometimes any of these things can bother them. Right? Gastroesophageal reflux, or GERD, would be frequent acid reflux. So that stomach acid is refluxing back up through the sphincter into the esophagus. Nausea, gagging, chronic dry cough, because you have all the irritation, right? And you're just constantly coughing because it's irritating it, and your body doesn't know why it's causing it. It just knows it's coughing to try to release whatever that agent is. It's trying to excrete it out through the mouth or the oral cavity. It can cause a hoarse voice from all the acidity. It can start damaging the vocal cords. So risk reduction, antacids, right? So they're really kind of bicarbonate is going to change the pH. So antacids, or you can literally baking soda in water. I know it sounds gross, but that will bring the pH up, and antacid. All right. Lose excessive weight, because that can really put pressure on the stomach and cause it to compress. It increases the pressure in the stomach, and like I said, it has to go somewhere. If it can't go through the pylorus, it has to go up the other way. Don't lay down following a meal. Or if you do have this problem, what you can do is you can elevate the head of your bed a little bit. So whether it's 2 or 3 inches, at least you're elevated a little bit. All right. Don't overeat, avoid smoking, avoid problematic food. So anything that's going to trigger that. Sauces, pizza and wings before they go to bed, with beer, or, whatever. I'm just kind of suggesting some of the things that can do this. And then remember, you can get ulcers or esophageal cancer. So people that have a lot of this, they literally have to go wear a monitor, and they constantly, they run a tube down an endoscope, and they can just leave it in there sometimes over a weekend and just check and see what's going on if it's a serious condition. All right, peptic ulcers. All right, so these are literally ulcerations of the stomach. We said before the pH was about a 2 or 3, so it's relatively low. All right, and I said before there was a mucous membrane. It's kind of like, well, mucus is, stuff in your nose and in your mouth, or any area that's exposed to the outside. There's mucus in your mouth, nose, genital tract, reproductive tract, any orifice or opening that's exposed to the outside has mucus on it. Right? It has IgA, it has antibodies in it, but the mucus layer in your stomach is very, very thick. All right, so it's there for a protective layer. But if it's eroded, or it gets worn away, the stomach acid can start eating through the stomach muscle and eating its way through, causing an ulceration. All right, so burning pain in the upper abdomen, vomiting fresh blood. All right, so you're going to be vomiting up blood from your stomach because it hasn't been digested yet, right? Because it hasn't gone through the digestive tract. Black tarry stools. Now that is your intestinal contents. Well, the blood, if it's going through your pylorus and through your digestive system, blood is hemoglobin. It's got protein. It's going to start digesting that. So when you excrete that, it's going to be black and tarry. that is literally digested blood leaving the system. So that's a sign that there's a GI bleed, upper GI bleed, or a peptic ulcer going on. Increased risk is Helicobacter pylori infection. So Helicobacter pylori infection is what causes most of these, and this is a bacterium that actually can live in a pH of about 4. All right. So H. pylori, even though the stomach is a pH of 2 or 3, H. pylori actually has this mechanism where it can actually produce bicarbonate. It can actually produce a very, very basic material, and then it surrounds itself with that, and it buffers that pH so it can live in the stomach. And there's not many other things that can live in this. So this H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, it's kind of comma shaped, but it has no competition. It just sets up in your stomach and just starts eating away at the stomach lining. Excessive stomach acid can cause this. Right? So if you have a lot of stomach acid, no matter how much mucus you have in there, there's so much acid that's going to eat through that. Prolonged use of NSAIDs, right? Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, all right? So aspirin is huge, Tylenol, and years back there was a lot of the senior citizens would consume a lot of aspirin. So aspirin and alcohol are the only two things that are absorbed directly through your stomach. So they would take lots and lots of aspirins, and they would have GI bleeds constantly. And a lot of people literally died from GI bleeds. They're never reported because it wasn't surgical or it wasn't a pathology, but a lot of people died just from taking NSAIDs. Right. Gallstones, all right, these are deposits and from the gallbladder on that tube goes from the gallbladder into the duodenum. They can start calcifying, or they can start hardening, and on the way down they're extremely painful. All right, so gallstones and kidney stones have this very, very like a writhing pain. Right, so that it can be drop you to your knees. It's really, really extremely painful. Right, and that would be from people who eat a lot of fatty foods constantly. That gallbladder is constantly contracting, and then as it's contracting, some of the bile starts hardening on the way down. Right, and it can be as small as a grain of sand, and as it keeps hardening like a snowball going down the hill, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So they can go and do erythrotripsy, they can go and vibrate it and sort of like ultrasound and break it up, or they could go in and cut them out, or sometimes in women, majority of them are women, they go in and they just remove the gallbladder, get rid of the symptomatology. The problem is now if you have some kind of a fatty meal, you don't have the gallbladder to contract. So they literally just kind of plumb a line from the liver into the duodenum, so you're constantly releasing bile. So it's good and bad, but what do you do? Irritable bowel syndrome, symptoms, causes, and treatment. So irritable bowel syndrome can be anything that's irritating the bowel continuously. So that can be antigen antibody reactions. It can be gluten intolerance. Like I said, towards the end of the semester, we'll start talking about genetically modified food and some of these proteins we're consuming that we may not be able to digest completely, or they may have antigens on them that will trigger an immune response in your digestive system. And these immune response antigen antibody complexes are landing on your microvilli. And as your body goes to clean those up with macrophages and things, it starts destroying that microvilli. All right. And these people have just horrible gastrointestinal pain. They'll have digestive issues. They could be constipated one day, diarrhea the next. They could be feeling fine, then all of a sudden they get the bloated feeling, or they literally have to leave and go to the bathroom. And I know people who have this, and patients who tell me, they really have a hard time going to social functions or to a restaurant because they have to know where's the bathroom. And, a lot of them will check the bathroom out before they even go to a restaurant because they don't know halfway through the meal they could have to run in and go to the bathroom. And I don't know about you guys, but the last place I want to go to the bathroom is in a restaurant or a theater or anywhere other than, my home or my office. It's just not a thing, right? Ulcerative colitis, all right? Ulcerating, all right? That's literally bleeding of the colitis, the colon, ulcerative colitis. All right, so this is in the large intestine. Occurrence and symptoms and causes of treatment. That's usually from Clostridium difficile, and that's from uh, overuse of antibiotics and wiping out all of the natural competition for them. And this bacteria it can start, if you see pictures of it, you'll see a white inflamed rectum. The rectum should use a yellow, or sorry, a red tube, relatively healthy, innervated with blood. You'll have all these ulcerations and white pus and inflammation. We don't want to get into the graphics of that. We're not in microbiology or whatever, but it can be pretty gross. And colorectal cancer. So if somebody has polyps or diverticulum in the large intestine, or they're prone to it if they're eating a lot of refined foods or a lot of foods, grilled foods that have a lot of benzene rings. Those are carcinogens. And there's a lot of factors of what you're eating, what you're consuming, a lot of recreational pharmaceuticals, or even prescribed pharmaceuticals can start. The end place where all these things end up is your large intestine. And if you're not evacuating your bowels often, it's just sitting in there, all right? And those chemicals are reacting with your rectum. And cancer, the more you have to repair that tissue, the higher the mitotic rate, the more susceptible you are to having genetically altered cells, and the more prone you are to cancers. So signs and symptoms there would be diarrhea, constipation, nausea, and vomiting, right? Feeling the bowel hasn't emptied. So no matter what you do, you're like, oh, I swear I just went to the bathroom, but I feel like I had to go again. Blood and stools are narrower than usual. So you'll have it's called like a pencil stick bowel. So it's going to be the size of a pencil. So usually if you have, I can't show you, but if you have this red constrictor all the way around your large intestine, knowing what's left of that lumen hole is this much. The feces has to go through there. It's going to come out shoestring bowels. I've heard of pencil string bowels, and very, very thin. There's something around the circumference of that constricting it, causing the fecal matter to take that shape. Right. Frequent gas pains, cramps, and bloating, loss of weight without trying. That's a huge sign of cancer. Weight loss without trying, because cancer is very, very highly metabolically active and very, very aggressive. So it really consumes a lot of your nutrients. Right. So you're going to lose weight, no matter you have cachexia or no matter what you're doing. If your metabolic rate is that ramped up, you usually can't even consume enough food to feed it. All right. You're tired all the time, a lot of blood loss, you're having anemic, you can't run the Krebs cycle, your blood is deficient in oxygen. Things like that can happen. All right, so risk, age, colorectal polyps, so anyone over 50, male or female, should go in for your endoscope. What do they call that? Yeah, go in for your camera angle. All right, family history, personal history of cancer, irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. All right, certain foods, like I said, a lot. A lot of textbooks or a lot of, we can blame alcohol on a lot of these things. Smoking, all right. Treatment, you do surgery, chemotherapy, biological therapy, or radiation therapy. So something they can find, they can cut it out, use chemotherapy, radiate it, so all different treatments. And so let's talk a little bit about metabolism, basal metabolic rate. And I just mentioned the Krebs cycle and oxygen and ATP. So energy metabolism, catabolism, anabolism, adenosine triphosphate and is ATP is an enzyme triphosphate, is the energy currency of the body. So everything that your body's running on is running on this energy molecule, the enzyme triphosphate. So somebody who's catabolic is breaking down, anabolic is building up. So we're going to have dehydration synthesis or hydrolysis. So using water, we're going to be able to build things up or break them down using water. All right, it's pretty remarkable. Aerobic and anaerobic energy metabolism. So whether you're running it in the presence of oxygen or without the presence of oxygen determines where the Krebs cycle is run and basically how many adenosine triphosphate molecules you get. All right, if we run it all the way through with oxygen, some books will tell you 32 to 38. It really depends on optimum conditions. And if you're running without oxygen, aerobic or anaerobic without oxygen, you can run it outside the mitochondria and you can get 2 to 4, depending on what you read. And some of these biological fuels, right? All right. So please realize, you guys are taking nutrition, whether you're learning it or having fun or whatever. You guys have to realize that everything that's going on in your body, you don't even think about any of that. You just have to think about whether you're hungry, what you're going to eat, make some sensible choices on what to eat. But you don't have to worry about your blood glucose, your hydration, what your body's breaking down. It's all really done for you for the most part. You have to even think about this really remarkable machinery in the human body. All right, that's it. I will convert this to, what's going on? I will convert this to my YouTube channel and then reconvert it to Blackboard for you guys. So next week, I will plan on having a meeting at 5 every Tuesday. If it doesn't work and you guys want to switch to Thursday, or if you're just not interested in this or asking questions, that's fine. I'll record it. If you want to get a hold of me and you want to have a little face-to-face time, just email me. We can set up a WebEx or a little Zoom meeting. I have a Zoom account, so we can go for 6 hours or 15 minutes or whatever you want. Just let me know. And like I said, I will post the test hopefully Thursday. It'll be 50 questions randomly generated. All right, so you all will not get the same questions. All right, you guys, study.